Welcome to the Ordinary Guy Garage. I'm Scott, Ordinary Guy, and today I'm working on the 68 SS 396 El Camino. Now, I had the radiator, I had it repaired. The lower hose fitting was too small, so I took it down there and had them put in the proper size, and then they pressure tested the radiator, and there was actually another leak in there, and they fixed the leak, pressure tested it, and when they did that, they found a leak in the transmission cooler that's internal in the radiator. So shy of spending a bunch of money to have that all pulled apart and rebuilt and new parts and all that kind of stuff, I opted to just go with a remote cooler. Not exactly what I wanted to do, but the amount of money they were talking to fix that radiator, I just put a cooler on it and call it good. So what I did was I bought this cooler off of Amazon. It's a Hayden transmission cooler. This is part 679 right there. And when you look down here on their chart, they say it's for full-size motorhomes, fifth wheels, towing up to 10,000 pounds. So I'm not going to be towing. I'm not going to pull a fifth wheel, it's anyways. This will fit. So I figured I'd get the biggest one that'll fit, you know. So that's what I'm going to put in there. So it came with instructions. I always like to read the instructions, even though this is kind of a no-brainer kind of stuff. I've done a lot of these before, but I always like to read through the instructions. And then the line, it came with enough line to put in there. And a tip, always make sure you use the proper hose when you're doing stuff like this. As in, you don't want to use fuel line for vacuum line. You don't want to use vacuum line for fuel line. The hoses are all rated for a specific thing. And you could probably get away with some of it, at least for a short period of time. But why not use the right stuff? So, especially with like fuel injection, because fuel injection is higher pressure. But anyways, this also came with some, a packet of installation stuff. Got these little like radiator zip tie cooler things, and some hose clamps, and the little pads and stuff like that. Now this isn't usually, this is gonna be the first time I've used these before, I think. No, I used actual zip ties through a radiator once. But normally I'd like to take these and make their own mounts and everything for them. But this car is originally an air-conditioned car, and I don't have the condenser on it right now. I'm going to put the air conditioning stuff back on it and all that. So when I do that, any mount I make now, I may have to remake it again. So I'll just wait and make an actual mount for this once I get that condenser on. Or who knows, maybe by then I put a different radiator. I don't know. But for now, it's going to be the zip tie deals. So anyways, all that being said, I'm going to get on it. All right, here's my plan for this. Here's the factory transmission lines are just sitting there. So what I'm going to do is trim them right down in here. Right there, or somewhere right in here, in this area. And then I'm going to run them, you can kind of see there's a gap right in there. I'm going to run them right through there. And then, well, now that I got everything in front, you can't really see it. And then you can see through that hole. I guess I'm going to put this piece here. I'll mount up in there. Well, can't really see it. Maybe through the hole still. I'll mount it right in there. So it's going to be a whole lot of climbing underneath the car and stuff. I'll probably not make very much video, but there's the area right in here. Right in there is where I'm going to run the fuel line, or the transmission lines will run right through here. So anyways, that's how I'm going to do it. Alrighty, I got the engine compartment side done. It's really hard to see in here, but I need better lighting probably. I got the two hoses in there, cut them off, then put the clamps on, zip tie here, zip tie down there, nice and neat so everything will stay out of the way. And then over here, my next step, I left the hose in one piece. I just doubled it over and hose clamped it, and the reason for it is that way I could figure out when it gets into here, through there, one hose is going to be longer than the other. So that way I can cut the one where it needs to be, probably right in there where my thumb is. And then that gives me enough to stretch to the top. because when you put in your thing, one is up higher than the other, so you need a longer hose on the bottom, on the top than on the bottom. So anyway, sorry about the shaky video. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in and go from there. Okay, well, the cooler's all in. It's really hard to, get video of it. So anyways, side note, don't get excited and get ahead of yourself and start putting front end pieces on, before you do something like this. But, in my defense, I didn't know I needed to replace that until after I had most everything together. But the bumper I threw in there, so it would have been easier without the bumper, but whatever. My next thing I have to do is over here, I pulled out the water sender right there, and I'll go over to the bench and show you what's going on. All right, well, what I decided to do, the car has idiot lights in it, no actual gauges. SS396 for 68, gauges were an option. I'm not sure about the other years, but in 68 you can get an SS396 without gauges. So that's what I have. So what I did was I bought a Stewart Warner oil pressure gauge and a Stewart Warner water temp gauge. Now, normally I use the mechanical water temp gauges, but they have that big flare nut thing on the end of it. So when you go to put it in, you have to have a pretty good sized hole in the firewall. I'm not gonna put any holes in this. So I got an electric gauge. They're already mounted and hanging in the car. In fact, I already got the oil pressure hooked up. I just got to do the water temperature gauge. So in looking here, I bought because the way that these work is this here for an idiot light or light, what it does is it reaches a temperature and then and then it grounds out or whatever it does, or when it hits a temperature, it grounds and your light comes on your dash. So when you have a gauge, you want one that varies, so that way when it's hooked to it, your gauge will read and not just all of a sudden come on. So you have to change the thing. So only thing that they had available at the parts store is this little doohickey. This little doohickey right here. And okay, it was this little one here. So obviously it's a different size. So I got an adapter for it to put in there. Now this is the next issue. This thing sticks up, or actually protrudes into the water jacket. This one here also has the same part, but by the time I put that on there or get it screwed in together, you can see it's not going to stick out past the hole right there. And it's about the same size. So I'll only have that reading the water. Anyways, that might be fine, but I have a lathe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this in the lathe and I'm going to open that up a little bit so that way there's enough room for the water to get in around there. Yeah, you can see it won't even come out flush. So I'm going to see if that'll work. If not, I'll do something else. But anyways, I'm going to give that a shot. Well, that worked out pretty good. I took a 1/2 inch bit on the lathe and put this in the chuck and the other part, and then and opened it up pretty good. And this is something that you could probably do on a drill press without any problem. You can do it on a vise, whatever. You just got to take your time so that way you don't end up going like that, or that. But now the probe fits in there, and when I screw it in there, you can kind of see now there's room for water to get around the whole thing. I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but this is the kind of stuff that makes me feel better. Kind of like putting a hole in the thermostat. Makes me feel better. So that's what I'm going to do, or that's what I did, and that's what I'm going to put on the car. So head over there and do it. Well, it got the piece in there now. That's in, and then the probe is in, and I ran a wire for it up through here. Now, I'm not, and this is the old wire for the sender that's tucked up right there. I'm not happy with that, but for right now, it'll be fine. I got it zip tied and up out of the way, and I'll come back through here and detail it, probably retape it, the whole wiring harness right there. Anyways, I don't like the look of stray wires, so that'll all get dealt with. But for right now, that'll be fine for now, and I'll get in a mode where I'm fixing up the wires or detailing stuff, and that's when I'll take care of some of that stuff. Now then, down in here, move that out of the way. Down in here, we've got the gauges. That's the oil pressure gauge it's in. I have the one wire hanging for the lights. I just wanted to make sure it was working, so that's going to get fixed right now. This is the other end of the sensor that's going to go to it. I have the gauge here ready to go. Peeled off the sticker off of the back because they fit a lot better without the sticker in there. I put the light in it ahead of time because sometimes they're a booger to get in, and then I just got to wire up the back. So that's about it. It's hard to take video of me of actually doing this stuff because there's not a whole lot of room in here. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get this section of it hooked up and check back in. All right, well, I got the gauges in. You can see the light. Got the lights hooked up to them, and actually they dim too. They'll dim down. So that part of it works. I start it up. Got my oil pressure. It's got a 195 thermostat in it, so, you know, 210 is probably about right. I guess that's probably where it is right now. So that's that. All the wires are tucked up pretty much. Now I'll show you here. It's not bad, as in there's no wires that are twisted together, but you know, I'm not really happy with all that extra wires hanging in there. I mean, everything's in there correctly, but it's just too many things coming off of some of these ports in there, so I'll have to deal with that. Well, that's going to be a wrap on this video. Gauges are in, gauges are working. One thing I did do is when I started it up, you got to check those oil gauges. Are tricky, man, because they'll leak a little bit and you don't quite see it until you notice a spot on the floor. And that's what happened in my old Chevy, but it's got, you know, the rubber mat, so it's not that big of a deal. But this has got new carpeting and stuff in it. So I started it and I looked underneath there, had a little drip to it, so I tightened up all the little fittings a little bit, and now it's clean, no drips. So gauges are in, gauges are functioning, as you can see. Wires are all tied up. I'm going to go through and detail the wiring in here. This car has an alarm. It was put in there 20 years ago. I'm probably going to get that whole thing out of there because that's just a whole bunch of wires going all over the place. So like I said, I'll get in a wire mode and I'll detail it all out, but not there right now. So that's done. The cooler is all done. The transmission cooler is in. There's no leaks. I'm going to have to check the fluid level and all that, you know, but everything's going good. No water leaks, no coolant leaks, no transmission leaks, no oil leaks. So good. I'm doing really good. I'm happy with that. So now I got this car going good enough. I can get it out of here and get my son's Impala in here because we got to do some welding on that frame. He's been waiting, and excuse me, and I've been waiting too. So I'll be happy to get on that. So anyways, thanks for hanging out with me, and thank you to the new subscribers. Man, I really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do it. You know, what do you got to lose? 15 or 20 minutes of your time? I don't know. But anyways, thanks a lot for hanging out, and whatever you do, stay safe.